I see change happening.
People just don't believe the church.
The Catholic Church is not a monolithic bloc.
New rules this year on how to handle sexual abuse in the Catholic Church have failed to satisfy victims groups which still insist that the innocent are at risk from predatory clergy. My guest this week here in Rome is the Jesuit priest, Father Hans Zollner, who is a leading expert on sexual abuse among the clergy. Is the Vatican serious about real change, or will it continue to provide opportunity and cover to priests who commit these terrible crimes? Father Hans Zollner, welcome to Conflict Zone.
Thank you.
Years after thousands of sex abuse cases committed by Catholic priests have come to light around the world, the Church is still failing to cooperate with successive inquiries, failing to come clean about everything it knows, still failing to change. Why is that?
I think there are factors that make it difficult to change, but overall I see change happening. Over the last years we have had a number of cooperations with civil authorities in the US. Bishops have handed over on their own, without any request from state authorities, documents. The Holy See has cooperated on diplomatic ways with governments.
Well, let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Last month, an investigation by the Associated Press slammed the Catholic review boards in America, these mandatory bodies that were set up to probe evidence of abuse. They found a whole catalogue of dishonesty and cover-ups. Across the country, they said bishops had masked these boards in secrecy, often hiding who serves on them. In dozens of cases, secular courts or government investigators later decided abuse was credible after the boards said it wasn't.
Yeah, these people have been chosen from among professionals. They are lay people mostly on those boards.
It's the bishops who chose them.
Yeah, but they have volunteered to go on that board. So it is also their responsibility what they do. We have had enormous number of people.
In some cases the board members were lied to or weren't even told the truth.
Yeah, this is up to the bishop's responsibility, and then they have to take whatever they need to do as responsibility. They are responsible for that.
Yeah, but they're not. I mean, they're taking responsibility. AP says that the review boards appointed by the bishops operating in secrecy have routinely undermined sex abuse claims from victims, shielded accused priests and helped the Church avoid payments.
All this has to be uncovered, and that's why we need those news. And
but it just goes on and on. But you said that, things were positive. This isn't positive at all, is it?
No, absolutely. And I said in my first response to you that there are things that are difficult to change, but there are other elements that are changing.
This investigation, though, points to the fact that there are significant numbers of senior clergy in your church who are basically rotten. Church, despite everything, still provides a home for deceivers, criminal priests or abusers. Don't you ever ask why? That they managed to find a home in the Catholic Church for these people?
No, I mean, they have not found a home. They have chosen that, and they have behaved as they have, so they have to be taken to accountability.
And you have given them opportunity and cover over the years.
Yeah, because we have now established a system of accountability with the meeting of the presidents of the bishops' conferences that we organized in February. For the first time, we have made a first step forward in something like a delegation of accountability from Rome to the local levels. That was one of the problems, because the Catholic Church is not a monolithic bloc. It exists in 7,000 dioceses, and the Pope is the only one, according to canon law, who can really sanction a bishop. So it is now it is possible, since 1st of June, with a new law that has been established, that the local metropolitan, the archbishop, can and needs to oversee what the bishops in his district do or don't. And he has to report if there is a failure, negligence or cover-up.
Okay, well, let's talk about accountability in more detail a bit later, but in January this year, the Pope criticized bishops in the US for covering up sexual abuse and indulging in gossip and slander to avoid responsibility. It was painful, he said, to watch an episcopate lacking in unity and concentrate more on pointing fingers than on seeking paths of reconciliation. If it was so painful to him, Why not use the remedy that was staring him in the face and remains in his hands today? Sack the bishops, sack as many as you have to in order to restore some public trust in the church.
Yeah, but
he doesn't do that. You say yes, but he doesn't do that.
He did it yesterday.
Well, one?
Yeah, and over the last years he did a couple of more, and a number of them I know.
A couple of more. How many bishops have you got in this church?
Yeah, when you receive a report on that, he has sacked them, and he has taken the initiative to do that. I mean, this
Peter
is...
Isley, who heads the group Ending Clergy Abuse, says the only way to solve this is at the top. He, the Pope, can do it with the stroke of a pen.
Yeah, and he does it every now and then. When there is a report, when there is credible allegation, when there is an investigation that proves the allegations, then he has done it.
Last December, the Wall Street Journal reported that a little-known Vatican appeals panel had been going soft on priests convicted of sexual abuse under church law. In more than a third of the cases, it said, those priests had their penalties sharply reduced. So much for the kind of zero tolerance that this Pope has been advertising around the world.
Yeah,
really?
but I mean, this is an appeal court. In every law system you have a first instance and then you have an appeal. So that did not exist until it was established 5 years ago.
It wasn't pleasing senior cardinals what happened. In June 2017 at a Vatican meeting, Cardinal Sean O'Malley of Boston reportedly complained bitterly about excessive leniency. This has been another trend under this Pope, hasn't it? It's excessive leniency. Tough line in politics, zero tolerance, and behind the scenes, go soft on them.
No, I mean, this is not the full truth. He has dismissed many priests, he has dismissed a number of bishops, and he has established the Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors. He has been very strong on the establishment of new laws, and all this has happened over the last 6 years. So,
but prelates and priests who've abused are still in the church.
Of course there are, because
and they remain in the church. And how much confidence, therefore, can the public have in all these measures that you're citing? Very little, it would seem.
Yeah, that is understandable. Of course, I myself are working for a change in this, and we are hopeful that with new measures, with new laws, and with an education that transforms culture, things will change. But this is not in an institution that has 1.3 billion members and has, as I said, thousands of dioceses, thousands of bishops and provincials and generals, tens of thousands of congregations. This is not an easy task to do.
Nobody said it was easy. In June last year, though, you gave the comforting assurance that the Pope was getting to the bottom of the issue, you said. He's not choosing 1, 2 or 3 black sheep, but rather looking at the root of the problem. He's asking what caused these abuses, how was their existence denied, how abuse of priests were transferred. The main thing you said is looking at the system in its entirety. This was last year you said that. Frankly, you've had decades to look at these issues, and your comments really sounded like an attempt to kick this into a sort of academic playground instead of dealing with the specifics. You know the answers to these questions. The UN Committee on the Rights of the Child told you what the answers were, many of the answers 4 years ago, but you didn't take any notice of them.
Oh, absolutely. I spoke today with one of the members of this commission, of the UN Child Rights Committee.
Oh, plenty of speaking, but you just don't do the things they ask.
And he told me that they are very confident about the collaboration with the Secretariat of State at the moment, and they are complying with what the committee wanted them to do.
Immediately removing all known and suspected child sexual abusers from service. That was the recommendation in 2014, but it isn't.
Yeah, it is.
Otherwise, there would be far fewer of them who are known to many people and known to many bishops still in the church.
No, how do you know that?
How hard is that to kick these people
You know
out?
that when there is an allegation, when there's an investigation, and then there's a judgment. And this is what all the laws are about. And this is happening at the moment.
Another recommendation ignored, repealing all provisions which may impose an obligation of silence on the victims and on all those that have become aware of such crimes. Why hasn't that been repealed?
It is repealed, as you see.
What do you mean?
Yeah. I mean,
you're telling me that all the bishops are coming clean about this? They're not, are they?
They are coming along. I have been, over the last 3 months, I've been to 5 bishops' conferences. And I can tell you that all of them are very, very clear on all this. What they need is education and formation, because many of those are from countries where you have no resources, where you have little knowledge about how to deal with this, despite all what we can say about human formation, about spiritual formation. They have not dealt, because in those societies, I talk about African and Latin American countries as well as about Asian countries, this is not a topic that people talk about publicly. You don't speak about sexual misbehavior in the society of, let's say, Myanmar or easily South Africa. You don't do that.
Father
So the
Zollner,
church is part of those societies, and this is a process, as we have seen in the US, in Ireland, in UK, in Germany, that goes step by step together with the society at large.
and it's taken years and years and years to get even to the stage we're at now. People who abuse children are sick and depraved, aren't they? And their actions are covered up by churchmen who lie, either to hold on to their jobs or in the mistaken belief that they're protecting the church. What's so hard to understand about that?
No, there's nothing hard to understand, and they are dismissed from the priesthood.
Peter Isley, an abuse victim who heads the group Ending Clergy Abuse, complained in February about you and your colleagues. He said, they're saying there are all these bishops who don't understand sexual abuse. How do you get to be a bishop if you have to be given an education about the rape of a child? Good question, isn't it?
Absolutely. I
how
met
did they get
Peter.
that?
I met Peter just on the eve of the meeting of the presidents of the Bishops' Conference.
With which he wasn't very impressed.
We were in one room with 20 survivors of abuse from different parts of the world, and there is no education about necessary for what is rape or what is sexual violence. What is education necessary for is how you approach a victim, how you accommodate them, how you help and support them, and what you do with the perpetrator.
This is just sort of intellectual playing with the issue, isn't it?
Yeah, and
It
it is
really
a, okay, you can take it like that. It is a psychiatric and psychological measure that you have to take. Not all of them are pedophiles.
We see how great your commitment is to taking abusive priests out of the system with the case of Cardinal George Pell of Australia, don't we? I mean, this is a man who's a convicted sex offender serving prison time. Has he been dismissed from his lofty role as cardinal? No, he hasn't. Of course he hasn't.
First of all, he has been convicted in 2 instances, and just 2 weeks ago
Doesn't
we
matter
learned
whether it's one
that
or
he
two.
has
It's rape.
There is
rape.
Yeah, but he has not a final conviction, and that is what the Holy See has always said. We will wait until the final conviction will be said, and then there will be consequences, surely. As has been in other cases.
The
like
UN
with
pointed out in
McCarrick
2014.
has been the same thing.
Father Zollner, the UN pointed out in 2014 that your church was quite happy to defrock or demote nuns and priests for far less serious offences like violating the obligation of silence. But now we see when it comes to a cardinal, a convicted sex offender, it's just fine for him to hang on to his position, isn't it? What's the message that sends? The higher up the church you get, the more protection you get, and the more we're going to ignore these very serious, perhaps some of the most serious crimes that there are.
See what happens if there is a conviction that is credible and confirmed in the case of the former Cardinal McCarrick. He has been defrocked, he has been taken out of the College of Cardinals, and
because of the public outcry.
No,
That's what did it, didn't it?
No, because
That's what
no,
did it.
no, it started with an investigation by a church board in New York that stated that the allegations that came forward in 2018 for the first time, that he had abused not only seminarians who were adults, but for the first time minors, were credible. And then that was forwarded to the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith that conducted the trial. The trial found those allegations credible, and he was defrocked immediately.
You have a convicted sex offender in jail and still a cardinal. Is this really the image of the Catholic Church that you want to portray in 2019?
No,
Really?
as I said, when
Are you happy about this?
As I said at the beginning, I'm not happy at all about the situation, and I hope that we will have clarity once the appeal court or the High Court will ultimately define what will be the penalty, or if there is any.
You've got enough clarity to defrock him. If he, by a miracle, wins his appeal, you can reinstate him, can't you? I mean, Tim Lennon, president of the Survivors Network of those abused by priests, I'm sure you know him as well, says Pell should have been immediately defrocked. It makes me speechless, he said, that they've kept him as a cardinal. That means he's the prince of the church, the third highest ranking member. So now we're faced with a situation where survivors have to rely on civil courts to achieve justice because we have not seen that within the church.
Yeah, but if there is a conviction, he will certainly be defrocked. This is my conviction.
You've condemned you very strongly sexual abuse in the Catholic Church, but some of your comments appear to water down your condemnation by pointing out that this kind of abuse is rife in many other parts of society. You said in one interview, I follow the situation in the US, and of late you have accusations against all kinds of religious leaders from different religious denominations, the Boy Scouts, in sports, teachers, university professors, medical doctors, psychologists, police, military, and so on. Why point all that out? Do you really think that sexual abuse in the church sounds less disgraceful if other people are doing it as well?
No, what I said was that this is also a problem for the whole of the society, and the church has to do, as you can see in hundreds of interviews that I've given, in all the texts that I've written about, that my first interest is that we do, as the Catholic Church, what is our responsibility, and that we take our own field and that we clean it up.
You are entrusted not just with the physical protection of those in your care, but the protection of their soul.
Absolutely, and this is what I have pointed
And
out.
this is a double betrayal by priests.
Absolutely, and this is what I repeat over and over again when I go to all those conferences. This is one of my major points, and you will...
and there's no progress on this at all.
Oh, yeah, I see a progress in this, at least with the people that we train in the Center for Child Protection of this university.
One cardinal admitted publicly in February at your meeting at the Vatican Conference on Protecting Minors that some church files on abuse cases have been systematically destroyed. Systematically, important word, isn't it? Because they knew exactly what they were doing when they were getting rid of damaging information. And they probably still are destroying these documents, aren't they?
They have done that. I wonder how you know that they are doing it. Absolutely, this is wrong when it happens, and this has to be persecuted, sure.
In February, there were high hopes for that conference on protecting minors, especially since it had taken decades for the Vatican to give this kind of public importance to the issue. But on the eve of the meeting, Pope Francis attacked those he called accusers, those who spend their lives accusing. He said, these are the friends, cousins, and relatives of the devil. Really? People accusing priests of committing these cardinal sins?
No, absolutely. I mean, if there is a crime...
He didn't even turn up himself to the summit, did he?
Of course he was there, all 3 days and a half he was there. Oh, sure. He sat through all the sessions.
And why was he blaming accusers then?
I don't know what he referred to. I can't believe that it was accused of abuse that has happened.
The conference highlighted one glaring omission that you as an organizer seem to have overlooked. 8 victims of sexual abuse were invited to give testimony, but there was no attempt to find out if the priests who committed crimes against them were still in the church. Why didn't you ask specifically for that information?
No, that's not true. This information is not true. We have inquired. You have to reckon that a good number of those 8 did not want to be publicly known. That was also the reason why we couldn't give the names, because they themselves said they wanted to remain anonymous. And that's why I also had to go through third persons to come in contact with them, because they did not want to show their face and they didn't want people to know anything about what was going on.
But Marie Collins, former member of the Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors, said the fact that the Vatican didn't know if these priests in question were still active in the church undermined the credibility of the whole event. And even Archbishop Charles Scicluna, former top prosecutor for sex abuse at the Vatican, said he would try to find out, because that's a very important point. You haven't found out since, have you?
I have found out. We know about them.
And are they in the church or not?
Those who told, they did not give me the permission to talk about this.
You said in March after the conference that bishops who attended had taken some initiatives and that some had revised their guidelines for cooperating with civil authorities. Fact is, there's still no absolute requirement for the church to inform the police of any suspected abuse, is there?
Yes, there is.
There is? Really?
The Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith in May 2011 stated that wherever in any state or country there is an obligation to report, then that law has to be followed through.
You told the Tablet in January 2017 the Church cooperates with laws and legal proceedings where it can. So it may cooperate or it may not.
No. Where the obligation is, then we have to follow through. But you have to reckon that in 197 countries in this world, the law on reporting is very different. And sometimes in countries, you have states that have different reporting laws. Nobody understands in the Anglophone world that in Germany, the parliament in 2010 decided against a mandatory reporting law on the grounds of voices of victims and the experience of psychiatrists and psychologists.
Well, the Global Victims Group says you're still hiding behind that argument, that mandatory reporting to police is a problem in some countries. It said, just establish the law for reporting and justify the exception. Instead, you're using the exception as a pretext for not reporting sexual abuse to civil authorities.
If you listen to what I said just now, I did not talk about countries like Iran or Iraq where you would be killed because of
Those are the exceptions.
These are the exceptions. I was talking about countries like Germany, like Italy, where you don't have a mandatory reporting law and on grounds that have been established by professional groups and even, as in the case of Germany, by the input of victims. And by 1st of June 2019, we have a law that obliges all clergy and all religions to report abuse to church authorities in the whole world.
Father Zollner, your system of church justice inspires very little public confidence, doesn't it? Because your justice is behind closed doors and therefore no one knows if it's been done or not, do they? Not surprising, therefore, that so many people think you're incapable of being transparent and the Catholic Church is incapable of policing itself. Do you go along with that?
I believe that we need much more input from professionals and we need also oversight from outside. And this is what is happening now, for example, in the English inquiry and the response of the Catholic Church to that. They have called for an independent inquiry and they have voluntarily opened all the files for that kind of verification.
But the Church refuses to submit its processes to public scrutiny. What we do know from documents back to 2001 is that only priests can officiate at these hearings, and cases of this kind are subject to what was called the pontifical secret.
Yeah, and exactly this is the first assumption that you said is wrong. You have women who can preside over such trials, lay women, and the second one is changing as we talk. You have quoted Archbishop Scicluna. He's a very important figure in this field, and he has called for the ending of the pontifical secret being applied to this kind of cases.
It may not happen. It may not happen. It should have happened a long time ago.
Yes, I'm pretty sure that after this February conference, it is going to happen very soon from now.
Well, we're now in December, so we're a long way from the February conference.
But we have had a law within 5 months after we have a worldwide law that was promulgated and applied to the whole church in 5 months after the ending, no, 4 months only after the ending of this conference. So I think there has been a clear sign that there is some determination to move on.
And the problems with canon law, which the UN asked you to revise, Law 1395 in particular, which says about forced sexual abuse by a priest with a minor, he is to be punished with just penalties, not excluding dismissal. And that's it. Could be dismissed, but might even not be. This is your canon law.
No, the normal penalty that is applied in those cases is the dismissal from the clerical state.
Yeah, but it's not mandatory.
It's not mandatory because the cases are very, very diverse.
And this is the grey area that your abusive criminal priests are allowed to hide in, isn't it?
Yeah,
this is the gap that they hide in.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's up to the judges to take evidence and then to judge as according to the facts that they have established.
This is why priests are allowed to get away with these crimes year after year.
As I said, thousands have been defrocked because of that.
August last year, the Attorney General for US State of Illinois launched an inquiry into every Catholic diocese in the state looking for unreported cases of clergy misconduct. Why? Because she didn't believe the Church's assurances that since 2002 all cases had been reported to the civil authorities. People just don't believe the Church.
And I can understand that, sure.
Why do you stay on then? If you're selling faith and you can't even get people to believe your word.
Yeah,
Why go on like this?
No, I mean, I see that there are many bishops who comply with all those obligations that they have.
There are many who don't.
Yeah, sure. And this is the mixed reality we live in this church, which is not a community of saints only. There are also sinners in it and criminals. So this is the fact that you have to face reality. This is the reality of the church I work for and I am in, and I have grown up in this, and I have received so much. And you may believe this or not, but yesterday I had an exchange with a lady who follows me on Twitter, and there was an attack from somebody from another country, sort of taking me as an example of those hypocrites and so forth. They talk a lot. This lady is a survivor of abuse, as she states on her Twitter account herself. And she told me personally, please keep up the work, go on, keep up what you do.
Father Hans Zollner, thanks very much for being on Conflict Zone.
Okay, thank you.